What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr Wargames, and today I am dusting off YangZings and mixing them with True Kings thanks to the return of Denglong. So, this deck has some great synergy. The fact that the True Kings can destroy the YangZings on the board, so not only can you summon down a level 9 beat stick, but you can then also start triggering the YangZings as long as you control them. And then with Lithosagan coming back at 3 as well, it does give you the ability to bring back YangZings from the graveyard in order to destroy their effects, so you can get them destroyed in hand, then destroy them on the field. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe if you want to see more True King variants. There is, of course, Cosmo as well, and you could technically play a 10-year Sword Soul version as well. So with all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into the profile and show you what we've got. Now I'm going to start off with all of the YangZing cards first, then the True Kings, and then the flex spots. Now, what I kind of went into this build with was that I was not going to include any Sword Soul in the main deck because then it becomes a Sword Soul deck, and I feel that YangZings deserve to have their moment of being themselves again. Now, back in the day, this card was absolutely insane because it only needed to worry about a Veiler, whereas now it needs to worry about Veilers, Imperms, Ashes, to say the least. Why is that such a big issue? Well, it does have an effect. As cost, you send 2 YangZing cards from your hand to the graveyard to special summon a YangZing with 0 attack and a YangZing with 0 defense from the deck. If that wasn't bad enough, you have to control no other monsters in order to trigger that effect. Now, it's good in the True King version if it resolves, because when it does resolve, you get 2 YangZings on the board with different attributes, and that's when you can start abusing the True King's abilities to start going, okay, cool, pop, pop, summon, trigger both those YangZings, get different ones that I might want in order to make more Synchro plays. It's not an effect you're going to want to be doing a huge amount of times. The reason that you've got the Jitao is the fact that it's another YangZing that can be destroyed and then float into another, and it is a level 2 Dark Tuner. Then moving on to the other card that we play at 3, and we are playing Triple Swanee. So all of the non-tuner YangZings have the effect that during your opponent's main phase or battle phase, you can Synchro Summon, but you have to use specifically YangZings you control. And that's really, really important because they then all give them additional effects. Swanee gives the monster that it makes an additional 500 attack. And all the YangZings pretty much share, apart from Chiwen, share the same effect that if they're destroyed by card effect that you control them, they can then spawn into another one, which is why they work with the True Kings, because as long as you control them and then destroy them, you then have the ability to float into another YangZing. We've then got 2 Bian. So Bian is the Earth level 3 that allows the monster that it Synchro summons into to not be destroyed by battle, which can be very invaluable depending on what you're trying to move into. Considering now with Denglong, you have the ability to adapt its level from anything from a 1 all the way up to a 9, apart from some in between. So it goes from 1 to 6, and then you can make it a 9. So you can't make it a 7 or an 8. Still does incredibly well, and that will then allow you to kind of adapt levels, and also Denglong floats into other YangZings as well. We've then got 2 Bixie. Now, Bixie is the fact that it's just a level 2 and it's a non-tuner. On top of that as well, the Synchro monster that it makes is unaffected by trap effects. Obviously, with the formats being a little bit different, the best thing that it can dodge is stuff like Imperms. Evenly still affects the player, so if they give you a token, you still lose that YangZing or that monster, no matter what it is. The fact that, bar the fact that they only make you use YangZings during your opponent's turn, it's very easy. So like literally the main effect you would usually make off of your Jitao was getting a Swanee and a Bixie to the board, and that would then give you the ability to sync into a level 8. Now obviously you have the ability to also try and push into a level 10, so trying to make a Baron that's unaffected by Imperm can be very invaluable. And then the penultimate ones we play is the Double Chewing. So obviously this is one of the cards that can just float from the graveyard. That's why we also play Omega in the extra deck, because Omega can just put this back into the graveyard, and then when a YangZing is destroyed, it floats back to the board and it's your level 1 tuner. On top of that as well, it's very easy to be sent from the deck to the grave with Denglong, adapting it to make Denglong a level 1 tuner, which synergizes really well with the True Kings, because straight away you sync those together, that's your Baron. All of your future plays are then protected from Nib, and then not to mention you've got your Chewin in the graveyard, so when Denglong leaves the field you can get any YangZing from the deck, and if you activate another True King to destroy that YangZing, not only will you get another one from the deck, but you'll also get Chewin to come back to the board as well. We still play the one Tai and the one Pulao. Now obviously Pulao makes the monster unaffected by spells when it is Synchro summoned. The Shadow one doesn't really do a huge amount. The reason you play it is just the fact that it's a level 5. it has a bit of an on-field effect. So it still has the destruction effect, but it still has the on-field effect to synchro summon. On top of that as well, using only YangZing monster control, you get a quick effect. Possession of a synchro monster on the field that use this kind of synchro material cannot be switched. So it basically means your opponent cannot change a Heart You. It could be important in a Sky Striker matchup because it means they can't actually activate Widow Anchor and steal it, which is a little bit funny. Then, of course, the spells, we've got the one path. So the path lets you target 3 YangZing in the graveyard, shuffle them into deck, draw 2 cards. Denglong goes back, draw cards. Let's go. I really like Creation. I think it's one of the nicest artworks around. So you've got obviously Bixie and then Bian. And this one is once per turn, if a monster or monsters you control is destroyed by battle card effect, no matter what card it is, you get to special summon a YangZing monster from the deck. You can't special summon monsters from the extra deck except synchros. And on top of that as well, it's once per copy. So if you have 2 copies, you'll get 2 out, which is really kind of cool. And the idea is you get 1 tuner, 1 non-tuner, synchro during your opponent's turn, and you keep pushing. And the last one is the 1 pillars. You could arguably put this at 2 if you want to. I feel 1's kind of enough, purely because it does specifically need you to have a YangZing. But then obviously in doing so, that's the whole idea that I've shown you in the Sword Soul profile, that you destroy the Denglong, Denglong floats into a Bian, Chiwin comes back from the graveyard, and then you can sink into an indestructible battle Herald. So moving on to the True Kings. So for the True Kings, you can pretty much play whatever ratios you want. I feel the most consistent one is, of course, Lithosagem. For the pure fact, it's Earth. Now, when you look at your hand traps are going to make a big difference to the deck. With the True Kings, it's rare that you actually want to resolve its second effects because it's rare you're ever going to have 2 Earths or 2 Waters or anything like that. The idea behind this is you need 1 that match the attribute, so 1 Earth and then 1 of anything else. Ideally, what you want is you want another True King. And that's the reason we play the 2 Barastos, because ideally what you want is you want Lithosagem plus a Bian plus a Barastos. That then gives you the ability to go Lithosagem, destroy Barastos, destroy Bian. Obviously, if Bian's on the field, great, you're going to get a nice little float. Destroy Bian, Bian summon out the Chiwin. Lithosagem summons itself down, Barastos then summons a True King from the deck. Straight away, because you've summoned out that Chiwin, you can then synchro the Chiwin plus the True King that's come from the deck, or the Lithosagem, make you Baron. That's it, you're protected. Then everything else from that point on is just going to be free extensions in order to get into like rank 9s if you want to go down that route, more synchros if you want to as well. So you don't want to flood the deck with True Kings, but you want to have the right balance. Which is why we also play the 1 Agamazud and the 1 Mariamne. Now, obviously, the idea is you're going to have more 5s because you can also count Ash Blossom as well. But you've got Ash Blossom and Swanee. The Mariamne doesn't actually have that many win targets, which is why we're also playing in the main deck for the hand traps Ghost Mourner, because it gives you another win target. It's rare that you're actually going to be using this as its own effect to summon. More times than not, you're going to use it as destruction fodder from one of the other True Kings to then search you out another True King of an attribute you're going to want in order to then trigger and use the rest of your hand. And that's why it's really important with stuff like Jital to get you 2 YangZings on the board. You get double floats and everything else. For the rest of the True King cards, sadly, we can only play the 1 Diagram, and then we are playing the 1 Terraforming. So, Terraforming to get into Diagram, I know it's not an ideal scenario, because obviously if you open up Diagram, Terraform is completely dead, but you kind of need to see this as having 2 copies. You can play Cydo Space, but once you get the Diagram, you don't really want to get rid of the Diagram. So... And that's it for the True Kings. You want to make it a very small engine. If you wanted to up the consistency or you wanted to make the deck a bit more competitive, you can very easily play a Super Heavy Samurai engine. And that's like your Bike and Wakashi, because straight away they give you into a level 8 Synchro. It can also bring back your Jital or your Chiwin through Axel Synchro Dragon and everything else. Then for the hand traps, we've got 2 Mourner. These are all interchangeable depending on the format. 2 Ash and 2 Bell. So obviously, as you can see, because we've gone with Wind, Fire and Earth, all of the attributes share the same as the True Kings. The only one that doesn't is Water, and the reason we're not playing any Waters is because the Water is the Dogwood, and that's not something you really want to be playing in your main deck. That being said, all of these have utilities, and that's kind of why you want... Ideally, you want your hand traps to be monsters as opposed to stuff like imperms, even though we still can play imperm if you want to. But the idea is that even if you open up a hand trap that's not good in that matchup, you can very easily destroy it with a True King and still be able to make a summon or a destruction of a YangZing, you name it. Not to mention, these are also all tuners, so you can use them as well. And if you were to put Draw and Lockbird in, that makes the Mariamne more consistent, not that you want to rely on it. So we've got these 6 hand traps, and then the rest of the cards I'm going to show you are flexible. They can become more hand traps, they become more board breakers, it's entirely up to you. So I've gone with 3 Kashtira Fenrir, and the reason for this is it's an earth that replaces itself, so it gives you an earth in the hand for Lithosagem if you wanted to bump Lithosagem up to 3 and make that your most consistent True King. But the idea is you're just getting a free level 7 on the board, that technically this plus any of the hand traps becomes a Baron, protects everything you need to. This plus a Chirin becomes a level 8, and then if you were to add the Jitao becomes a level 9, and that can very easily get you into a Dark Lock of Chaofeng. So very, very important on that one. The being able to get into a Chaofeng that's Dark Lock is really important depending on what matchups you're in. So triple Fenrir, I've gone with double talents, so just as a go second board breaker to kind of out stuff like Dragoons or any kind of boss monsters that you may struggle to deal with. And then we've got the 1 Call by the Grave and 2 Blackout. Now, no, straight away you're going to be like, what the hell? Why have you got Blackout in here? Well, believe it or not, you're going to be playing the Sword Soul Synchro monsters because they're just insane. They're probably the best worm monsters you can get for the extra deck. So we're going to go with the Yugioh. And the reason Yugioh is in here and the reason we've got 2 Blackouts rather than 1 is because if you make the Yugioh, you can actually banish a Blackout from the deck and that gives you another level 4 tuner. That is a water. That can then be utilised off of the back of the Brastos to then summon itself down. Or you then have the ability to also, on top of that, give you the ability as a level 4 tuner. So you just normal summon a Swani, another level 8. Here you go. On top of that as well, you can also have a second Blackout to search it, because Blackout just makes you tribute 1 worm monster you control and 2 cards your opponent controls. And it destroys them. So the best thing about that is it will destroy your YangZing. The issue is, I believe, so you target the cards and then destroy them. So I believe it will still trigger the YangZing cards, which is really, really kind of cool. But you can choose to either banish it for the extra tuner or you search it and you've got a way that you don't even need to tribute the Yugioh. You can just tribute anything. Plus Yugioh can banish any worm from the graveyard, so it's still a level 8 negator. So that's it for the main deck, flat on 40. Moving on to the extra deck. So from the extra deck, we'll go from highest to lowest. So we've got the Psychic End Punisher. The reason this is in here is because you can very easily adapt the level of your Denglong to become a level 2 if you want it to be. It can become a level 1, meaning that you can sync it with a level 9 of your True Kings and make a Pep. On top of that as well, you can very easily make Denglong a level 9 if you've got a Bixie, and then you go Bixie plus Denglong to make this. This is then unaffected by trap effects, which is really funny. And then on top of that as well, because you can adapt the Denglong so much, you could in theory go Denglong, make it whatever level you need to make this, plus the 4. So you make it, let's say, trying to think of the maths off the top of my head, but let's say you've got Bian, you've got Suwani, and you've got Denglong. You make Denglong a level 4. You go Denglong, Suwani, Bian. This then becomes a 4k base that can't be destroyed by battle. Like, there's no more of your opponent going, okay, cool, I get my life points lower than yours, destroy this by battle. It's like, yeah, no, not happening. You can very easily pump out level 10s in this deck, and what I mean by that is Chewin plus a True King, Denglong plus a True King, you name it, you can get level 10. So you want to go for Baron for protection. You can play Quinling. You can also play Chenying. So all of those can be played. Absolutely insane, good powerhouses. We do play 4 boss monsters, or technically 3 boss monsters, if you don't include the Baron as a boss. So you're very top heavy, but the extra deck is completely flexible depending on what you want to play. We've then got the 1 Chaofeng, so this is incredibly important in this deck now. Because you play so many different YangZing attributes, you can very easily Light Lock, Dark Lock, Fire Lock, Water Lock, Earth Lock your opponent. Wind's a little bit trickier, but it's still very easily doable. We've got the 1 Trish, again, because of the level manipulation of Denglong, getting into Trish isn't that bad. And then we do play 1 XYZ in the extra deck, purely because of that ability that there will be sometimes where you're like, okay, cool, I'll just overlay 2 level 9s, or I'll overlay 2 True Kings. You can then use a True King plus a Trish, and the Trish has already ripped 1 from your opponent's hand. So you're getting the ability, and it's a water. So keeping in mind as well, the attributes are all relevant. So Baron being a wind, less so, but it still may come up. Your long one being a fire, not that you ever really want to do it, but keep in mind, if your opponent's got a monster, like you've already burnt them twice, and your opponent's got a monster that you can't deal with, if you use this and Swani with your Agamzud, you then get to banish 1 monster on the field, so you get an additional board clearance. For the level 8s, of course, we've got the Yugioh, we've got the Berserker, we've got the Omega. The reason for the Omega is purely to, not only can it rip from your opponent's hand, and if you wanted to, you could go Trish, Omega, enter Blafnia and rip 3 from your opponent's hand, which is busted. But Omega can also put your Chew-in back into the graveyard, and constantly keep being able to do that means that every time a YangZing is destroyed, Chew-in's coming back to the board. It guarantees you got a tuner. So every time they destroy a YangZing and it floats, you then make sure that you have the right level manipulation to go into a 7, which is Yazi, or you go into a 4, which is of course Herald. We've then got the 2 Baxia and the 1 Yazi, of course, all pretty straightforward and simple on this one. Baxia is even more important in the YangZing deck, because to pop a YangZing and make it float while also bringing a YangZing back from the graveyard just helps you extend your synchro plays. The fact is a level 8 can also help you get into a level 10. If you wanted to, you could very easily put Chaos Angel in the deck, because you could very easily go Baxia, destroy any monster apart from itself on the board to bring a Jitao back from the graveyard, and then you would sync the Jitao plus the Baxia, and you'll get a full-powered Chaos Angel that protects all of your synchros. If you did want to put Chaos Angel in here, I would cut the Sacred Tree Beast, Hyperion, but this is just the rank 9 that we play, just to kind of utilize it. The 1 Denglong, the 1 Herald, and then of course the Hyperion. This can be any level or rank 9 that you want to play. There's the Cyverse one that sends from the extra deck to the graveyard. In doing so, you'd probably want to look at stuff like the Garura for a draw, or of course you'd go for a Natis for an additional pop. You can also go into Fortress Blafnia, entirely up to you. So that is it for the profile. Really, really fun deck. It's nice to kind of dust YangZings off a little bit. There is one thing you're always going to need to be aware of with YangZings, and that is they can miss timing, as they are a when effect when they float. So you do need to keep that in mind. However, I felt that with the Banlist changing things up, giving us back Denglong, and the True Kings at decent level of power, bar not having access to the more diagrams, I thought the deck was kind of cool to play around with, and it's definitely fun. I feel what I like about a post-ban list is the fact that the format's always a little bit up in the air. Obviously, we know certain decks are going to be the best deck and everything else, but it's quite nice to be able to go, oh cool, let's experiment a little bit, let's see what other decks we can kind of put together, what else we can trial out, and then kind of go from there. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.